Hey guys, what's going on? This is Enox Gamer here today. We got some League of Legends for you. Today I felt like covering wards, and reason being is because it's a topic that's been beaten to death over and over and over again. But I want to talk about it because I still feel that there's a lot of people out there that are either warding certain positions on the map incorrectly, they're not warding enough, they're not warding period, or whatever. And hopefully this guide will help you in all of the above and uh, should help you increase your chance of winning the game. As we all know, getting ganked is a big pain in the ass a lot of the times, and it sets you back very far in lane or in the jungle. A big counter to that is vision. Knowing where the enemy jungler is and being able to react appropriately is going to help you stay alive in your lane, going to make sure that you know where their enemy jungler is so you can coordinate possibly ganks on him or her, whatever, if they're doing red buff, blue buff, or something like that. Vision is very important, and today I want to go over certain ward positions that are going to help you get the most out of your ward, as well as help you protect more than just your lane. So for instance, we're going to start up at top lane. So there's a few wards that a lot of people like doing. So there's the classic one that you usually ward pretty much right here where I've placed the champion. And what that gives you is some vision downriver, some vision closer to your tri-bush. So that way if they're coming upriver, that you're going to see them hopefully before they enter the bush over here. And if they're coming just from tri, you're going to see them just as they're cresting into river. Now it is a very good ward if you only have one, because it kind of provides vision of both. But generally, as a rule of thumb, what I like to do is, depending on where the lane's pushing, so right now you can see here, typically your champion's probably going to be over here, so there's no reason for you to have a ward in tri-bush, because ultimately it doesn't really matter. It's not giving you any vision that you really need, and that being said, your lane is pushed to a fairly safe point for you. You're pretty close to your tower. The only real place that they can gank you from is maybe a lane gank, but at the same time you're still getting vision from these minions. So typically what I like to do in when I'm playing in the lane is, depending on where I am in the lane, how far I'm pushed, I would ward appropriately. So if I am being pushed in, a ward in river is probably my best choice. Warding up here is only going to give me vision up here, but if he comes through river, which is the more likely option, I'm going to get ganked. That being said, a good time to ward tri-bush is when you are pushed as well. Now, it's really hard to keep track of both, but at the same time, there's wards that alleviate the situation. Where if you are actually pushed to the enemy tower and you just ward tri-bush, you can easily get ganked from river. There's other wards on the map there's other wards that you can place on the map that alleviate this exponentially. So let's say if we place a ward in tri-bush. So now we have vision there. We're okay for our lane. Say if we're pushed top lane or something like that. Another great place to place a ward, especially if you are in fives, or if your mid player understands that they need to do this a little bit more, is anywhere around here really. You can place it right here if you want, you can place it in the bush, you can place it up here more, but this is a crucial ward. This is one of the best wards that you can possibly place because, one, if you have vision of the camp, the Wraith camp, you can actually see when the jungler is coming. If they start Wraiths, if you have an early ward, when they get to Wraiths, when they are approaching to go to their red. And what this does allow is, now this entrance is closed off, we know that we have vision there, and this entrance we have vision there. So there's no way for the jungler to get anywhere in through river unless there's someone like Lee Sin or Jax, or they'd want to burn their flash and hop the wall, which is a very rare case, and that really doesn't happen all that often. It still can, so kind of be wary about that, but these two wards close off the majority of the top jungle and help you understand where the enemy jungler is. You can have a very rough idea of when he moves from wraiths to red, or if he's going to golems. So that ward is very important. Now, this is for blue side. If you are red side, obviously, then you'd place the ward somewhere in here. But let's say if you are blue side, and you still have no idea what's going on in bottom. there's a couple things you can do here. Now you can place a more passive ward, which is right here. You can place a ward here if you want a more defensive ward. That being said, it's not giving you any vision of very much that's in river. It's not giving you any vision of any of these bushes, it's just giving you vision here. When is this a good ward for blue side? Well, what this does allow is your bottom lane to not have to ward Tribush, because again, the only way into that Tribush is coming through here. So it is a good ward. That being said, you can place wards more in this area if you like, because this is one of their big entrances in here as well. If you are pushing in your lane, warding a little bit more aggressively, more into the enemy jungle, is probably going to benefit you a little bit more, because you're going to know where the enemy jungler is, where the enemy team is, as they're coming to you. So you can appropriately back off, do whatever. So another good place for a ward I would recommend is just up here. What this ward does allow you to do as well is see when the enemy mid player is moving towards their blue buff. That's really good information because of a few things. Now you can coordinate with your jungler, your mid lane, and your bottom to go take their blue if you want. You can also try and gank them when they're at their blue. But at the same time, this allows you to know where at least two of their members of their team is. So your mid player can now push mid a little bit harder because mid is now missing. They're going to go get their blue. And bottom can now push a little bit harder as well. And hopefully you can force them to miss some CS. Now, the other lane, there's a few for bottom, which typically most mid players don't ward in any of those positions. You can defensively ward here if you like as well, to know if they're going to try and steal their blue. It all depends on the game. If their jungler is very aggressive and is trying to steal buffs and counter jungling a lot and you're just losing control, defensive warding in your bush, in your jungle, is definitely going to help you know where they're moving. So typically, if you have this ward already set up, you don't really need a ward in Tribush as bottom lane, and the reason being is because this is the only way into that bush. So most players will end up warding somewhere around Dragon. Now, this ward serves a lot of purpose. One, because it gives you vision of this entrance and exit into the enemy jungle. You now no longer have to ward anywhere here because you're going to have vision of that champion coming here. Now, some champions like Lee Sin are very hard to get a hold of if they know where the wards are. So that's a big thing about warding as well, is you don't want to let the enemy team see you where you're warding for the most part, and that way they don't either get an oracles or a pink ward and clear your wards out, and they're not going to know where they are. So if you have a champion like Lee Sin, Katarina, Jax, or something like that, that can leap to or jump to a ward, because they can easily just plant one over here and ward hop. They can do the same thing up here as well and do that into the Baron pit if you've warded your Tribush. They can easily come around and then gank you in river. I've had it happen to me before. It sucks. It was a very good play on that jungler's part, and it's something that you don't really expect because you're hoping that wards are going to help. And they do. They are definitely a great investment. And it's really easy for top to buy one ward here, for maybe your mid to buy 1 or 2 wards depending, and ward those areas appropriately. And your bottom lane as well to ward where they need to be warding. Now, this ward obviously gives you that river vision that you crucially need if you have this ward, because now you no longer can be ganked anywhere from this jungle area. For the most part, well, you'll have vision. That doesn't mean you're not going to get ganked, but you'll have vision on the jungler, which is very strong, very good. You also have vision of dragon, so you can see when the enemy team is possibly looking up to get dragon. You can have a timer on it as well, because if they take it, you have vision of it, you're going to know when it was killed. And it just stops a lot of that early aggression for dragon control if the team is going for that. That being said, you can ward Tribush if you want. That is just, now with Season 3 patch and how some of the changes are, it's a lot easier for supports to carry more wards. But that being said, spreading that out throughout the team and warding those places is definitely going to help you control how you guys get ganked, because for the most part, if you have wards in those locations, you'll be able to see where the enemy jungler is moving, and it's going to be very difficult for that player to get ganks off, provided you have map awareness to constantly be looking at the mini-map. That's something that's very important with wards that people tend to forget, is even if you buy them, they're no good in your inventory for the most part. You want to have them on the map giving you vision, especially in crucial times where if Dragon's coming up in a minute or two and you put a ward there, you're going to know when Dragon is up, when the enemy team is going for Dragon, or Baron, or even blue buff or something like that. Another ward that's a little bit more offensive in its nature is this ward right here. And this is a really strong ward if you have a lot of coordination in your team. Reason being is because you're going to see when they're doing their blue buff. You can try and get a steal on their blue buff. You can see where the jungler is heading in a lot of the directions, and if their team is moving down into river. This isn't a mandatory ward, this is more aggressive warding. It's a really good ward when you get the first tier bottom turret down. If you're continuing to push, having a ward somewhere in river, more up here in this area, still having vision on Dragon, and having a ward over here is definitely going to help you when their jungler or mid player are going to come and try and put pressure if you're continually pushing bottom lane. So that's something I always keep note of, is the more you push in your lane anywhere else, the more aggressively you should be warding in the enemy jungle to protect yourself from getting ganked. That being said, there's almost no reason for you to buy 2 stacks of wards just to ward everything to make sure you know everything, and that's why placing wards in key places like around here by the red to see when they're taking a buff. If you take away a blue buff or a red buff from certain champions in the early game, you effectively hurt them, and this is a variable to a lot of champions, but for example, which is one of the classic ones, if you take a blue buff away from Amumu, his jungling speed is drastically reduced. If you take a red buff away from someone like Lee Sin, his ganks aren't nearly as potent. So having control of those, if you possibly can, are very good. That being said, if you're getting invaded a lot, defensive wards are very strong and underrated, because if you have an enemy jungler that's coming in and he stole your red before, he's coming back to do it again, and you have a ward by red and you can see that, your bottom lane and your mid and your jungler can collapse on him and create a 4v1 situation, because their mid lane and their bottom lane probably won't react in time, and that's just going to secure you the buff, and you're going to get a kill on their jungler, which means that jungle pressure is off. There's no ganks for the next death timer, depending on what it is, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of places where some wards are good. I mean, like in a lot of the bushes as well, they'll give you vision of that bush, which is very strong. But for the most part, what you should be doing and thinking about is where you should ward and where you can get the most out of your wards and what they provide for you. So making sure you don't get ganked is a huge thing, but when you're constantly pushing lanes or something like that, wards in the blue bush, wards maybe right here in these rounder bushes on the side, and still having wards on major objectives are very strong. The last thing I just briefly want to talk about are lane wards, and they are very important for a lot of reasons, and because there are 2 bushes, typically what you can end up doing as a support player is, if the lane is pretty much stale and stagnant kind of in the middle, if you decide to sit in this bush and then ward the one in front of you, you effectively have full vision on your bottom lane. A forward bush like this is a really strong ward because it stops opponents from lane ganking. They're still going to come, they're going to waste their time. You can back off a little bit. If you lose a few CS to not dying, it's definitely worth it. If you can stale and keep the jungler kind of sitting around waiting for a gank, but they're not doing anything, they're just kind of waiting, and then you see them you're wasting their time. And if you wasted 5-10 seconds of their time, that's very strong, because you have vision on them. Your top lane and your middle and your mid lane and your jungler know that their jungler is right here waiting for a gank, so they can turn on the aggression in other places as well, and they know they're not going to get counter ganked. Same goes for top as well. Sometimes warding these bushes against certain champions or certain junglers is very strong and will help you in the lane as well. So that's just briefly wards and how they're going to help you out. They are a key component to this game, and vision is crucial. If you don't have vision, you don't know what's going on, and that can definitely turn things around. If your jungler's coming in for a gank and you don't have vision, and their jungler is ready to counter gank and they end up winning the fight, it's basically on your team to start warding. So that's all I want to talk about today, guys. It's a quick video. Very briefly, I am going to be gone for the Christmas holidays. I will be back around the 26th, so there's not going to be any videos from when this gets released until about then. I do apologize. I know a lot of you came here probably because of the WoW video that I have. That's up because that has the most views on my channel. And unfortunately, certain circumstances arose where I actually can't afford to play that game anymore. So until I get to a more stable situation, right now there's just going to be content for other games as well. So that being said, don't hesitate to comment, rate, subscribe, that sort of thing. I do appreciate every comment that you guys have. Every time a video is liked and that sort of thing, I do like interacting with everybody, and I like seeing the feedback and getting feedback as well. So if this video helped you out, let me know in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully it won't be too long, and enjoy your holidays.